Hi, this is Mrs. Robertson, and today we are going to be doing Chapter 6, Lesson 2. It's about multiplication and division equations. We've already done this, so this should be an easy lesson for you. The important thing is to make sure you're lining up your equal signs and balancing your equation, along with showing each step. So let's go look at page 447 in your math book. Okay, so let's, on page 447, they are showing different ways of doing problems with number cubes and number blocks. Let's go on to page 448, and we're going to talk about how to do problems using the different properties. All right, you should have your books open now to page 448, and we're going to go over the examples along with the definitions. So the key concept here in this part of the lesson, division property of equality, and it states that the division property of equality states that the two sides of an equation remain equal when you divide each side by the same non-zero number. A equals B when C does not equal 0, then A divided by C is the same thing as B divided by C. Remember, in algebra, when we communicate division, it's most oftenly done as a fraction bar sign. The fraction bar sign indicates division. So, let's look at example number 1. In example number 1, I know you know the answer is going to be 5, but we have to practice showing our steps, and it's easiest to do so with numbers that you're familiar with. So, to undo multiplying by 4, you show dividing by 4. 5 equals x, or x equals 5. And then they require you to do the check step. This is it. Does 20 equal 4 times 5? Yes, it does. All right, now let's go on to example 2. Here we're doing the same thing, but we are throwing in a negative sign, which makes it a little more challenging. To undo multiplying by -8, you divide both sides by a -8. Don't forget the negative sign. 24 divided by -8 is -3. Now, let's do the check step. Does -8 times -3 equal a positive 24? Yes, it does. Okay, now I want you to do the guided example problems down below. Once you're finished, then check my answers. You may put it on pause at this time. Welcome back. So, in letter A, I know you know the answer is 5, but we need to show divide by 6, 5 equals x. Circle your answer, check your solution. Does 30 equal 6 times 5? Yes, it does. Letter B, divide by -6, divide by -6. A equals -6. Pretty negative problem here. Does -6 times -6 equal a positive 36? Yes, it does. Letter C, divide by -9, divide by -9. See how I'm showing division? This is the way you are expected to show division in an algebra class, or for any time this year or next year when working with variables. D equals a positive 8. Does -9 times positive 8 equal a -72? Yes, it does. All right, now let's move on to example 3. In this problem, Leela sent 547 text messages last week. On average, how many messages did she send each day? It says let M represent the number of messages Leela sent. All right, 574 equals 7M. This statement is the part where you define your variable. This is something that they will expect you to do on the iLearn test Very easy, but if you do not define your variable, you will lose points. So this is a very easy step I want to make sure you are used to doing whenever you're writing your problems. So now you've defined your variable, you've written an equation, now we have to solve it. Divide both sides by 7, m equals 82. The answer is 82 messages. In word problems, don't forget to add your label. Let's do letter D. In letter D, Mr. Acosta's car can travel an average of 24 miles on each gallon of gasoline. Write and solve an equation to find how many gallons of gasoline she will need for a trip of 348 miles. All right, so I'm going to say G equals gallons. I have defined my variable. Now, my equation, 24G equals 348. So you'll get points for defining your variable, points for writing your equation. Then you would also get points for solving your equation. Divide by 24, divide by 24, and you'll get the answer G equals, let's see, it'll go into that once. And then it will go into that, let's see, subtract 24 will go into 108. 4 times 14.5. So the answer is, write and solve an equation to find how many gallons of gasoline she will need. She will need 14.5 gallons. All right, now we are ready to look at the next property of equality, and that's the multiplication property of equality. I'm going to zoom this in. It's just a little, that's a little better. Okay. This property states that two sides of an equation remain equal if you multiply each side by the same number. If A equals B, then A times C equals B times C, C being the same number that you would multiply each side of the equation sign with, or the equal sign with. You can use the multiplication property of equality to solve division equations. So here we have the problem, A divided by -4 equals -9. Well, you multiply both sides by a -4 to cancel that out. A equals 36. -9 times -4 equals a positive 36. Now, let's go ahead and solve the bottom problems. You may put this on pause, do the problems, and then check to see if you have the same answers as I do. Okay, welcome back. In this problem, you're going to multiply both sides by -3. Why the -3? Your job is to isolate the y, to figure out what the value of y is. Y equals 24. Check step. That's the answer. Does 24 divided by -3 equal -8? Yes, it does. So when you would do these problems, you'd get a point for multiplying, a point for the answer, a point for the check step. In this problem, multiply both sides by 5. M equals -35. Does -35 divided by 5 equal -7? Yes, it does. Now let's go on to letter G. In G, you're going to multiply both sides by a -6. That will equal -180 equals B. Let's do our check step. Does 30 equal -180 divided by -6? Yes, it does. Now let's go on to page 450. In 450, we have the example number 5. It's a word problem, and it states, the distance D Tina travels in her car while driving 60 miles per hour for 3 hours is given by the equation D divided by 3 equals 60. How far did she travel? All right, D equals distance. Okay, they did not define the variable, they just put one in. So the distance formula, it has an example of the distance formula over here, equals rate times time can be written as D equals RT, R equals D divided by T, or T equals D divided by R. We'll talk more about the distance formula later on this year, but it's an important formula to remember. D equals RT, and then you can get the other equations from that statement. All right, so to undo dividing by 3, you multiply both sides by 3, and the distance is 180 miles. Okay, so let's do the guided practice together. In your book, divide by 6, divide by 6, C equals 3. And check step. Does 6 times 3 equal 18? Yes, it does. Divide by -8, divide by -8. 24 divided by -8, -3. Now, kids, feel free to do these problems. Put this on pause and then come back and check to see if your answers are correct. Divide by 7, divide by 7, M equals -4. 7 times -4 equals -28. Yes, it does. Little check step when it is correct. The next row, to undo dividing by 9, I multiply both sides by 9. P equals 81. 81 divided by 9 equal 9. Yes, it does. In this problem, multiply both sides by 12. Yes, it does. Multiply both sides by a -10. All right, now we are ready to go on to the next problems, the word problems. Questions 7 and 8. So on questions 7 and 8, we are going to do, let's see, Antonia earns $6 per hour helping her grandmother. Write and solve an equation to find how many hours she needs to work to earn $48. All right, so I'm going to define my variables H equals hours. And my equation is going to be 6 times H equals 48. And then the answer is going to be H equals 8. So the answer, write and solve an equation to find how many hours she needs to work. She needs to work 8 hours. I did not have to do, sorry about that, I did not have to do a check step on this. It didn't request one. But if this were a quiz or test question, I would strongly recommend that you do a check step on this. Number 8, a shark can swim at an average speed of 25 miles per hour. At this rate, how far can a shark swim in 2.4 hours? Use rate equals distance divided by time. All right, so once again, R in this formula equals rate. D represents distance. You can read that. And T, the variable T, represents time. In this problem, 25 miles per hour is your rate. So you're going to have 25 equals how far, that's a distance, and this is your time. So we don't know our distance, 2.4. So to solve this problem, you're going to multiply both sides by 2.4. When you take 2.4 times 25, you will have the answer 60 equals your distance. So the answer, 60 miles. All right, now I would like for you to do the problems on page 451. Do 1 to 12. And then on page 453, I would also like for you to do problems 18 to 26. I might change that later. If I do, I will put the problem numbers that are changed into the Canvas calendar. But at this time, you are going to do page 451, 1 to 12, and page 453, 18 to 26. Have a good day.